everyone. Happy Wednesday. So we are pre-recording this because Tara is going to be traveling and we thought, hey, let's do another fun UAP slash conspiracy episode. And this one's going to be wild. I'm just going to forewarn you. I'm throwing in all my crazy conspiracy shit. So get ready to have your mind blown. I think I may have cracked the code on UAPs and UFOs, or at least some of them. You're going to love this, Tara, or you're going to be like, what the fuck, Stephanie? Okay. So the most recent UAP news, which is what the media and our military is referring to as swarms of unidentified drones that have been flying over 4 US military bases in the UK. And it's happened multiple nights in a row. And what's interesting is when this was first reported, these were not being called drones. They were being called UAPs. And then all of a sudden, they like shifted and started calling them drones. However, our military admits like they don't know where they came from. And they're saying they're too advanced to be an amateur drone, but they don't think it's a foreign like adversary. So it's very interesting. So to start out, I'm just going to play a clip of Ross Coulthart explaining what's happening so far.
The floor. Take me through the experience.
I had just started my midnight shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Hang on. That's a clip I'm going to play for you later. You'll like that one too. Here's the real clip.
5 nights, possibly 6 nights of unexplained incursions by what the Air Force describes as drones over 3 of the most sensitive US bases or British bases where the US Air Force is based in the United Kingdom. That's Mildenhall, Lakenheath and Feltwell. And what distinguishes all of those bases is that it's very likely all of them have nuclear weapons. So this is a very grave situation. Unexplained incursions by unexplained drones, multiple drones, dozens in some cases, and there has not been any attempt, as far as I can see, to successfully bring down one of these objects so that we can be told what they are and where they come from. And when the Pentagon was asked about this, Major General Pat Ryder, the Pentagon's press spokesman, he basically said that all he could tell us is that they are being actively monitored. He couldn't answer a question as to whether they were from a foreign adversary, and he couldn't answer the question as to whether or not they were of hostile intent. In February last year, we deployed F-22 fighters to shoot down what we were told were balloons flying over the continental USA. It's a very interesting situation that we know that fighter jets have been scrambled from some of these bases in the United Kingdom. They've been flying without transponders, so we haven't been able to track them to see where they're going and where they're maneuvering. But there has been an air tanker refueling them, and they've been operating on afterburners. So it's quite clear that the military is taking this extremely seriously, and the British government has also brought in military assistance of its own to help the US Air Force deal with finding out any more that we can about these objects. At the moment, I think all we can legitimately say is they're objects and they're unexplained.
Okay, so that clip had video of these so-called drones. And I don't know, Tara, like I don't think that they're drones. Like they look more like orbs of light. They're like shape-shifting, expanding, contracting. And apparently they're like 20 to 30 feet wide, so bigger than a car. And they can evade our fighter jets. So there is a video of an F-15 like going at this thing, and it's the wildest thing. It almost looks like it was like startled, like it jumps and then it's just like boom and it's gone. The speed of this thing compared to the F-15 is like insane, and it makes almost like this immediate turn that isn't like anything that any of our aircraft could do, I'll just say.
Wait, is this one of the ones that was over the British bases?
Yes.
Okay, because I was reading, like, okay, first of all, you're going to be carrying this episode because This I had so much trouble even finding stuff other than what they want us to know. I'm going to say it that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yep.
And there's one of the somebody in Britain was saying like people are assuming that these UAP sightings at these military bases in England are Russian drones. But then they're saying that like local people and eyewitnesses are saying that they're moving too slowly and that like how if they are Russian drones, how could Russia have flown them over here at such slow speeds? So it's like, are
Well,
they slow
here's
or
the other
fast?
thing. Russia has been at war with Ukraine for 2 years. We haven't seen these anywhere in Ukraine,
Okay.
so like
Yeah.
why would they think that? And as far as I know, and I can't confirm this, but you know, on TikTok, people have been saying that the military does not think that it's our foreign adversaries because at least if it is, they're not aware of this type of technology that they're using. And so I have a whole theory I'm going to get into in a minute, but this morning, it's like my conspiracy brain is all over the place. I wasn't going to talk about Project Bluebeam because we just talked about that, right? But
Mhm.
let's just say for shits and giggles that Project Bluebeam is a thing, right? And like the military industrial complex is like, "Oh shit, Trump got in. What are we going to do? Project Bluebeam, plan B. Let's go with it, right?" What would they do? What would be their first step to introduce, aliens or UFOs? Probably do it on a military base that they have access to. Like these are happening on military bases, okay? And not only that, it's happening on military bases in the UK. The UK, like our very close ally that also hates Trump, that
Right.
is under mass censorship where they're people on TikTok are saying they are literally arresting people for singing like Bible songs or something in the streets. Like it's crazy over there right now. So Project Blue Book, right? You use this alien event to
Blue
create a
book or
one
blue
world
beam?
order. What?
Blue
Beam.
blue book or blue beam?
Blue Beam. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Blue Book is the one from the 50s. Blue Beam. Thank you. So if you want to create one world order, well, why not get your biggest ally in on it and do it at military bases in Europe? Like, so that's a possibility. I'm still thinking that this is like technology that our government has that us peasants just aren't aware of.
Yes, and why is it only that they're only seeing this on bases in the UK that have American personnel on them? Why are we not
Exactly.
seeing them in the British only bases?
Exactly. Now, I will say there are spottings of orbs everywhere. Like it's all over
Mhm.
Florida. Um, there was something big in Indiana. Like there's stuff every day that people are recording. Like you can see video of that. Again, it looks like an orb. It's like moving and like pulsating and stuff. So there are a bunch of videos, but again, like I don't know what's real or fake because of AI and all
Right.
this stuff. Like we don't know what a real video is. So anyhow, like I still have Project Bluebeam in the back of my mind. But in that clip that I played, he's saying he brought up like the weather balloon. And then he's saying, like, as far as they know, we haven't tried to shoot any of these drones down, right? Well, maybe it's because there's another viral video going around that looks identical to these so-called drones that are in the UK, but this was above a military base in Afghanistan. And I'm not sure when the video was taken, but it was recently released. And I'm assuming that was like part of the stuff they released with the UAP hearing. But anyhow, it's gone viral, it's all over social media. And this video shows a missile hitting these so-called drones and they explode. They like literally like splatter like an ink pen would splatter. But then immediately all the splattered pieces come back together to form a whole. And they just keep moving like totally unfazed. Okay, so a fucking missile couldn't take them down. Which quite honestly, like that event, whenever that happened, I think that could have been what led to the creation of the Pentagon's AARO program, that All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, because that was created last year. And that's probably why they were so hesitant to shoot down the weather balloon, because maybe they thought it
Oh,
was one of these. And maybe that's why they're not shooting any missiles in the UK, because they are like, we can't defend ourselves. Like, the technology's so advanced. What are they going to do if this thing fights back? So, is that not
but
crazy?
yeah, but I still question, like, is it this thing that's alien technology, or is it something that we've created? Because
Hmm.
Nancy Mace was talking about Arrow and their budget. She went on the Washington Times Threat Status podcast recently, and she was saying like she couldn't say what Arrow's budget is because it's classified information. But she said it's a really fucking steep number, and that all of the secrecy around this new organization is basically undermining the public's faith in government because we have no idea what they're doing. We don't know how much money they're spending. We don't know what they're spending it on because there's like
Right.
zero transparency. And she was like, I don't think the public needs to know everything because some things have to remain top secret, like developing weapon systems and stuff like that. But then she brought up questions like, who else has access to this technology? Russia, China, Iran? Like, if is it in the hands of private contractors who are basically getting around constitutional law so that they don't have to disclose any of this information to Congress? And she was even saying, like, it's possible that the White House doesn't even really know anything that's going on.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to Project Bluebeam, it's like, okay, Russia were, getting into a war with them. And then all of a sudden we see these in the UK, which Russia and the UK are part in on this as well. Could this be our military trying to show off this advanced technology after Putin just showed off his new Orshanik thing?
Yeah.
I think that's a very big possibility. So basically, everything I'm going to say from here on out, and I've like literally switched my mind this morning. I'm just going to look at it through the lens of like, could this all be positioned by our government as like a psyop to make everyone think we have UAPs and these are aliens or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this past October, the Pentagon admitted that these same looking, of course, quote unquote drones swarmed Langley Air Force Base last year. And Pentagon spokesperson Sabrina Singh, who's like the KJP of the Pentagon, like she can never answer a question, she tells reporters, quote, the number of those UAS incursions did fluctuate on any given day, but that they didn't appear to exhibit any hostile intent. It's something that we've kept our eye on, but I just don't have more to provide on that, end quote. You don't have more to say about freaking UAPs on our military base. Okay. So the Pentagon's admitting this has happened, and not just once, like multiple times. But other than that, they don't really know much and they don't seem to have a hostile intent. Like that's what they're telling reporters.
Yeah, but it depends who's talking, right? Because there's a senior ex-Pentagon security officer named Chris Mellon, and he talked to the Daily Mail and he said those sightings over at Langley went on for like 17 days. And he said it was part of a larger pattern that was affecting multiple security location, like national security locations across the country. And he was saying how like United States drone, like the signal jamming devices, like you said, like they're ineffective. And that his point of view was like, we have these UAPs, drones, whatever they are, and they're making no effort to conceal themselves. So he's like, they're taunting us. Like it is, maybe it is hostile because they're taunting us, right? And then the most recent AARO reports said that these drones were seen flying over US nuclear sites, like specifically nuclear sites, like for weapons and launch sites, at least 18 times between May of last year and June 1st of this year. So it's not like a one off anomaly, right? There's clearly a pattern here. And on Thanksgiving last Thursday, the Daily Mail showed a photo of the Capitol building, and there were like four mysterious lights hovering over the top of the dome. And the photo was taken the night before on Wednesday. And I guess like multiple people in the DC area are reporting seeing UFOs or UAPs on the same night. And one witness was like, yeah, this has been going on since November 15th. And like no response from the Pentagon.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And that makes me think. I remember this was like a few years ago. Roger Stone said ever since Biden took the White House, there have been these like red orbs above the White House. And he's like, you can see it. Go on the White House live feed at night and you can see them. And I've seen them. I've checked it multiple times. They are, in fact, they're like this orangish red. And he was saying, he's like, I think this is an evil entity. So of course everyone's like, you're crazy. But now like it doesn't seem that far-fetched. I'm like, poor old Roger Stone might have been onto something, you know? But think about it. Like, again, if this was Project Bluebeam, like you said, it's only at US military bases. And here's the thing, not even the military personnel or, these officials in the White House are necessarily going to know about it. Like, this could be
Right.
these black ops secret government projects that only like the top tier, generals know about. And so like even their own people could be kept in the dark so that it doesn't leak out that these are actually government, craft or whatever. So I still think that's probably what's happening. But so much like, and this is the other thing, so much has happened over the last year. And it's like, were they preparing for this in case Trump gets in office and they need to like do something drastic? So, also last year, an astronomer from Harvard University, Avi Loeb, and then Sean Kirkpatrick, director of AARO, released a paper in partnership with this DoD initiative to study objects of interest. And one of the objects is this cigar shaped object that's apparently in our solar system. And at first they thought it was a comet, but then they realized it's not a comet because of all these different reasons that I'm not going to bore you with. And so the pair posed this idea that it's like a mothership, okay? Which again, it's like sounds crazy, but it's like if it's like this is Project Bluebeam, like they're in on it, okay?
Yeah.
So Loeb told Live Science in an email to, quote, consider the possibility that an artificial interstellar object could potentially be a parent craft that releases many small probes during its close passage to Earth, an operational construct not too dissimilar from NASA missions. These, quote unquote, dandelion seeds could be separated from the parent craft by the tidal gravitational force of the sun or by a maneuvering capability, end quote. So keep in mind, this was around the same time that the swarm of drones was happening at Langley. So, like, that could be what he's referencing when he's talking about like dandelion seeds. But of course, the scientific community is like laughing at this. But what's important to note is our government isn't. Like, they're supposedly taking this very seriously because not only did they establish AARO last year, but they've already opened 360 investigations into UAPs reported by military personnel. 360. Like, that's a lot of sightings. And this is only military sightings. This doesn't even touch on any of the civilian sightings that have been happening.
Which there's a ton, because that's the only thing that I could really find doing research for this episode. There's a publication called Stacker. And like ever since this whole UAP hearing started, they've compiled this list of like for every state, there's a list of the top 10 cities where people are reporting, UFO or UAP sightings. And I was surprised because California is the state with the most sightings in the country. And I guess more than 16,500 reports of whatever have been on like since I think it was up to November 21st. So that's a lot of fucking sightings. And I guess like if you want to go and check out Stacker, you can look up your own state and you can see what's going on. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, people who see UFOs are crazy. And, some people are, but I believe that a lot of these civilian sightings are legitimate.
Well, everyone already thinks I'm crazy on this podcast. I have legit on two separate occasions seen something, but I always dismiss it because literally right across the state from me is where they launch for SpaceX. So I'm always like, it's just a SpaceX, and it may be. So I always dismiss it. And it's like, it kind of sucks because I'm like, I'll never know. Like, if this is just a SpaceX thing or if it's like an alien, I'll never know. So I always dismiss it. But, um, all of the things on TikTok over the past few days has been insane. I mean, a lot of people, and they're catching it on video. I mean, and again, the video could be fake, it looks real, but whatever. So now I'm going to play the other clip that you got a sneak peek of in the beginning. This is an interview on News Nation with a police officer where he's sharing his experience of a UAP sighting.
The floor. Take me through the experience.
I had just started my midnight shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. All of a sudden, from my left rear, there was a really strong light. It lit up the entire cab of my cruiser to the point where I was having a hard time driving because I really couldn't see it. I was blinded by it. At that point, the light started to move along the left side of the cruiser until it stopped right in front off to the left. As I looked up, that's when I saw this object. It was approximately 30 feet away from me. It was fairly close. And it was probably about the size of like a Mini Cooper. And it was a perfect sphere. And it almost looked like plasma moving constantly. And it was changing colors from red to green to white. And then it repeated the colors. And when I came to, I took my spotlight and shined the light at it. And as soon as I hit it with my spotlight, it instantaneously moved across the body of water. And that's when I sort of snapped out of it and took out my camera and started recording and taking pictures. I've seen my fair share of drones, meteors, and everything else. And I knew that this was something that I've never come across. It wasn't a drone, I can guarantee you that. And it was something I still to this day, I'm perplexed.
So this sounds almost identical to some of the things that the director of AARO was talking about in that second, like, more secret UAP hearing that they did a few weeks ago, that he was saying military officers had experienced, like almost identical. But notice how he said it was like plasma. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where I get all messed up with my conspiracies, because I have a conspiracy that I think it's plasma, or it could be the government making us think it's plasma, because all of this information has been released about plasma over the last year. Again, everything's happening over the last year, right as we're getting up to Trump getting elected. I'm thinking it's all connected. But anyhow, so let's just say these drones are plasma, okay? It would explain how they reacted to the missile strike.
Right.
And in case anyone doesn't know, because I gotta like remember, this is all over TikTok, okay? Plasma is the fifth state of matter, fourth state of matter. So there's like gas, or not gas, but what do you call that? Steam. There's water, there's ice. I'm missing something else maybe, and then there's plasma. And this is all like, there's so many recent scientific research studies and everything else on plasma over the last year. So anyhow, the way that they move and like
It's the fourth. I
the
just looked it
fourth.
up.
Okay,
It's
thank
the
you.
fourth.
I like,
Yes.
I'm like, is
Solid,
there another one?
liquid, gas, and plasma.
Okay, there we go. So plasma would be like, um as it gets hotter, so like you have ice. When you melt ice, you get water. When you heat up water, you get steam. And then when you heat that up, you get plasma. So the way that like these so-called drones can like move and maneuver and shapeshift, and like they take interest in aircraft, it sounds just like what's called plasmoids, which are basically like clumps of plasma. And I think that it's defined as like plasma structures that propagate as recognizable entities. And I guess we have satellite data on this, where it appears that they like detach and move away from the sun during a magnetic storm. So that got me thinking about the solar eclipse, because that was what, like a year ago, and all this weird stuff's been happening since then. And there's been all of these solar
Right.
storms and flares of historical proportion. And we know that when there are solar storms and massive flares that are especially directed at the Earth, it weakens the Earth's electromagnetic field. So it's conceivable that these plasmoids enter the Earth's atmosphere during one of these storms when the electromagnetic field is weakened. And maybe that's why there's been such an increase in UAP sightings. And it would also explain why all of a sudden our government's disclosing UAP information if they know like this stuff's everywhere because we keep having these solar flares. So, could this plasma be coming from this so-called mothership that the paper was about? Maybe. Could it be Planet X, which is also called Planet Nibiru? And here's another thing. I'm going to go all over with conspiracies because this is all over TikTok too, okay? This theory is that there is a ninth planet that orbits around the sun and comes close to Earth every 3,600 years, and that it's home to the Anunnaki. And these Anunnaki visit Earth every 36 years. And like they're the ones that are responsible for a lot of the unexplained things that we see in ancient civilizations, like the Egyptian pyramids, for example. And it's way too long to go into. Like, we could literally do a whole series on this. But if anyone knows of the Book of Enoch that was taken out of the Bible, it's basically explaining this whole thing, the Anunnaki and their relation to humans. So that's just like a side conspiracy. But let's just say, like, there is this planet coming by, right? Well, it turns out that last week, NASA published an article saying that Caltech researchers just found evidence of a real ninth planet.
Yeah.
I guess we do have a Planet X, and it's tracing a bizarre, highly elongated orbit in the outer solar system. And this freaking blew my mind, Tara. Like, how crazy is it to think that all this time we've had a ninth planet in our solar system? Is there life on this planet? Like, are there other planets in our solar system that haven't been discovered yet? And it just kind of made me realize, like, there's a lot we don't know that has still not been discovered. And so maybe these UAPs are coming from a ninth planet. Who knows? But does that blow your mind too? Like, we have a ninth planet?
Yeah, when you first started talking, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look this up because I we've known about our planets for how many years?
Yeah.
Thousands of years, right? How do we suddenly discover another planet?
Yes. Oh, and here's
That's just
another thing
weird.
I just thought of. Okay. So all these ancient civilizations, right, where they have these megalithic structures, and we're like, how did they create this when all
Mhm.
they had were chisels? All of them, all around the world, show this like solar eclipse happening, and
Hmm.
that like basically that is when this planet Nibiru comes and the Anunnaki visit. And when the solar eclipse happened, I remember there were so many people doing video of it where they were like, what is that behind the sun? It was like there was something else there. And so there's that. And then remember, like a few episodes ago, I was saying how the government's like, oh, yeah, we're going to have another moon for a few months in
Yes.
November. And but
Mhm.
it's really not a moon, it's an asteroid. And it's like all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to believe, but I think there's something there, whether it's a planet or a mothership. Like, there's something going on that people have been seeing. I mean, you can't, I don't know. I just
No,
can't
yeah,
deny
that's
it. Right.
yeah, no,
So,
it's crazy.
okay. So here's where like I want to go a little deep with the plasma thing, but I'm telling you, it's fascinating. So this year, a paper was published, and this had 11 different scientists that authored it. And it was titled Extraterrestrial Life in Space, Plasmas in the Thermosphere, UAP, Pre Life, and the Fourth State of Matter. And this is going to blow your mind, okay? The papers, I'm just going to read directly from what the paper says. Quote, computerized analysis of flight path trajectories documents these plasmas travel at different velocities from different directions, and they change their angle of trajectory, making 45-degree, 90-degree, and 180-degree shifts and follow each other. Now, this is exactly what happened when the F-15 was going towards this drone. It made like a massive, like 90-degree shift, and then it, boom, it was out of there. It goes on to say they've been filmed accelerating, slowing down, stopping, congregating, and engaging in hunter predatory behavior And intersecting plasmas leave a plasma dust trail in their wake.
Oh my
Could
God.
this be the chemtrails we see all over the place? I don't know. It gets better. Just wait. Just wait. Okay. It says similar lifelike behaviors have been demonstrated by plasmas created experimentally. Plasmas may have been photographed in the 1940s by World War II pilots identified as Foo Fighters, repeatedly observed and filmed by astronauts and military pilots, and classified as UAPs. Plasmas are not biological, but may represent a form of pre life that via the incorporation of elements common in space could result in the synthesis of RNA. Plasmas constitute a fourth state of matter, are attracted to electromagnetic activity, and when observed in the lower atmosphere, likely account for many of the UFO UAP sightings over the centuries.
What?
Yes, and I mean this isn't like some fringe thing. Like this is a scientific journal with 11 different scientists all like reviewing this. I mean,
Hunter predatory behavior.
mhm. Or did our government fund this paper and these scientists to tell us
Hmm.
that? That's a possibility too. Project Bluebeam. I don't know. Either way, it's like kind of alarming, you know? And so, okay, these all these UAP UFO sightings could be plasma this whole time. And this paper is suggesting that this could be pre-life. Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean that's where consciousness comes from? Are these like souls that are going to be born into Earth? Like, I mean, isn't that crazy? What do they mean? It's pre-life. I don't know.
Well, if they're saying that they're like congregating together and interacting, and it's almost like they're
Yeah,
thinking beings, like I don't know what to call it, but like
right.
you know what I'm
And
saying? Like they have action that like there's sense behind it.
well, and that's the thing. Like, Congress, they keep in all these hearings, they keep calling them interdimensional beings.
Hmm.
Like maybe they're preparing us, and maybe that's why all these scientific articles are coming out about plasma. Like, are they warming us up to this idea? I don't know, but I'm just like pre-life. And then as soon as I hear that they can potentially synthesize RNA, immediately I'm thinking about the COVID vaccine technology. Because what was that? That was mRNA. And
Yeah.
like a lot of the world has that in their body. Like, is there a connection? I don't know, but I just feel like this is a really big deal and we have to talk about it. I mean, whether this is Project Bluebeam or legit, either way, this is like disturbing. I mean, I don't know
Very.
how else to put it. And so then it's like, again, where are these plasmas coming from? Are they coming from a ninth planet? Are they coming from a mothership? Or are they just like floating around in space? Oh, and the other thing is they've been spotted, like this is confirmed, above, they're like hovering above the Egyptian pyramids.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's another thing, just to
Which
throw that out there.
there's yeah, there's all sorts of mysterious connections with the pyramids anyway. So that
Yeah.
would make that like
And I
hmm,
guess for the first time in thousands of years, you know how like the pyramids are supposed to line up with like a constellation or something? It's going to like perfectly line up soon. And it only
ooh,
happens every few thousand years. And planet Nibiru, the theory is it only comes around a few thousand years. So it's like a lot of weird things are all kind of coming together, which is just like I don't know what to think. I've got like five conspiracy theories going on in my mind right now, but I think Blue Beam is the number one.
hmm.
Okay, so I got to leave you with another mind-blowing fact. And that's, again, the UAP hearings, they are making sure that we know that these are interdimensional beings. Like Representative Luna, she was like, everyone needs to have this in their vocabulary. We're not calling them aliens anymore. They're interdimensional beings. Like she made a point to say that. And okay, so let's talk about dimensions because every scientist can agree there are multiple dimensions. We all know that we're living in the third dimension. Okay, so Here's what's really interesting. Since we live in the third dimension, it is impossible for us to observe something from a higher dimension. A higher dimension can observe us, but we cannot observe them. And I was watching a video where a scientist was explaining that if there was a higher dimensional being that came into our 3D Earth, we would only be able to perceive it as a circle of really bright light in the sky. So these plasmas look like circular orbs of light, but maybe that's just how our brain is perceiving them. Maybe they're really a higher dimensional being that we can't even fathom. So our brain is like just giving us something we would recognize, like a bright circular light. And maybe that's why it's weird that they seem to shapeshift and do all these things that defy the laws of physics here on Earth. But then it got me thinking about like our sun and our moon. Like, are they really just a sphere? Or are they higher dimensional beings that our 3D minds can only perceive as spherical? Like, maybe they don't even look like that. And so it just makes me think about like all these ancient civilizations again that like worship the sun as a god.
Mhm.
But maybe that's why, like maybe they understood something that we're just now cluing into and figuring out that these could be higher dimensional, like sentient beings or something. I don't know. I mean, that's like the least crazy thing I've said in this episode, right?
Well, yeah, because if you look back at all of the basically almost every culture in history, they all had these kind of connections to astrology that
Mhm.
we don't pay as much attention to.
Right, exactly. And all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
these people supposedly couldn't communicate to one another because they're on different continents, yet they all have the same hieroglyphic, images and stuff.
There's a Netflix show. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I just watched it like 3, 4 weeks ago. And this guy's going all over the world. And I think
Ancient Apocalypse?
Yes, Ancient Apocalypse. Yes, he's
Yes.
going all over the world at all these sites that, were lost for ages. They've been lost for thousands of years. And it's these full-on civilizations that they found underground in completely different parts of the world, but they all have very similar symbols in them, or they're constructed with the same, and they're all somehow connected with astrological events and positioned in certain places that have to do with astrology. And it was crazy because it wasn't just like one place, it was literally throughout the entire world.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he talks about it on that show, but he is who I heard about Gobekli Tepe from, which that's a structure that was uncovered by like a guy that lived there. He was like digging in his yard and finds something. And I think this was in like 2008. So they start doing an excavation, and this completely changes everything that we think we know, because
Yeah.
at the time, it was like 16,000 years ago or something, where we're supposed to just be hunter gatherers. But there was like this whole civilization that, I mean, megalithic structures, stuff carved that like we can't even do today with our modern technology. And so it's just like, I think there's a lot we don't know. And I think we can get a little arrogant and thinking that we have it all figured out when it turns out we don't even know what all is in our own solar system, let alone all the
Yeah.
other solar systems,
And this guy was saying, like, they uncovered this evidence that's basically undeniable. But then you have archaeologists that are like, oh, no, that didn't happen. Well, how
Yeah,
the fuck do you know that didn't happen?
right.
Like, there's
No, they're
evidence showing that it did.
they're like covering it up. You want to hear something else wild?
Yeah.
Um, so again, some local guy finds something when one of the rivers dried up in the Middle East. And I guess this is like in the Bible or something. And this is supposedly where there's like the tomb of Gilgamesh. And supposedly when the river dried up, this guy like literally found the tomb of Gilgamesh, which sounds kooky. It's like whatever. Well, this is in modern day Iraq. 3 months later is when the United States decided to invade Iraq,
What?
and the whole area was taken over by the military. And so a lot of people think like that's what's going on. And then there were all these locals that were saying that the military is taking all of these artifacts, and that's what they're there for. They're on a mission to find artifacts. So again, this could all be bullshit, conspiracy, dark web stuff. It's like you have to
Mhm.
take everything with a grain of salt. But at the same time, do we really think the government's being honest with us about anything after what we've experienced over the last 4 years? Like, they probably know all
That's what I was
kinds
gonna
of shit.
say.
Yeah, they're like, these idiots, like, they don't even know they're being shadow banned on Twitter. We can tell them anything, you know? So, like, I don't know what to believe. But if I sound crazy at this point, wait until you hear Tucker Carlson, because I have a clip of him on the Redacted podcast where he says what he thinks is happening with these UAPs. So listen to this.
This, there's this process of recovering of these craft, whatever they are, right? And the so-called biologics that reside within, supposedly. And I'm sure you're aware of this. So how exactly are there so many crashed UAPs? What is that? They have the technology to, travel 150 knots underwater, but they somehow crash a lot. I mean, it doesn't kind of make any sense. They just have like bad GPS or something. It's like they possess technology that defies the laws of physics, but they crash. So I just don't think that makes any sense. And what I believe is true is that these recoveries have been the result of the summoning of these craft. And that's the word that was relayed to me, the summoning of these craft. So, if you're summoning stuff, what does that even mean? You're talking about a phenomenon that exists in the spiritual realm.
Okay, so Tucker thinks that we're summoning these crafts, and he thinks they're evil. He thinks they're like demons, and apparently a lot of religious people think that they're demons as well. So
Okay.
now there's that. Let's just throw that theory in the box of theories for today. But the reason I played that is because it's interesting that he says summoning, because this is exactly what Dr. Stephen Greer does. He's got a whole program. He has an app. It's called CE5. And Dr. Greer, he's the guy who like is kind of like a whistleblower. We know he's worked on all these black ops projects and he's been talking about it for years, but I was saying I don't trust him because why are they letting him talk? Like
Right.
why haven't they shut him up yet? So I don't know if I trust the guy, but he has like this whole program where he teaches people how to summon these crafts. He's like anyone can do it, and his theory is that these are not demons, but they are higher dimensional, and he said they are well beyond us in terms of consciousness. And he said they're not hostile because like they're so advanced in their consciousness. There is no war, there is no fighting. It's like pure love energy. And he's like, we can literally ask to see them. And there's videos all over the place. And he posts a bunch of them where he's doing that. He'll lead a group of people at night outside. He'll teach them how to call forth these things. And all of a sudden, these orbs will appear that look just like these so called drones. And I mean, I don't know what to think about that, but he's doing it and no one stopped him. And he's been able to go on all these podcasts and everyone's just like letting him talk about this stuff, which I think is weird. And so the latest on him is he's all over the internet talking about how he can promise to keep people safe and give them full immunity for any whistleblowers from our government that want to disclose what's happening behind the scenes in our government with UAPs. And he's saying, we have to let the American public know this. People deserve to know. And I can keep you safe and I can give you full immunity. Why? I don't know. But he's like putting that out there now.
Like, are the aliens going to somehow protect people? Or
I don't know. I mean, I do think he's working with the congressmen and women because at the hearings, I have seen him like sitting in the audience, and I think that they've consulted with him. I don't know if I can trust him though. And again, if this is Project Bluebeam, he would be the guy to like, okay, you're going to act like opposition, but then
Mhm.
you're going to start sprinkling this information and putting it out there. So I don't know what to believe. I think it's probably Project Bluebeam. And I sounded crazy a while ago, didn't I, when I said, oh, there's going to be all these aliens in the sky. And everyone's like, she's a conspiracy theorist. And now look at, now they're in the sky above our military bases that have nuclear weapons. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And the timing of it is just too coincidental. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I'm going to give today before everyone's head explodes. But I'll uh I'll keep everyone posted because obviously there's going to be more on this now that like military
Mhm.
bases are involved. So I'll keep an eye on that and let you guys know, and I'll let you go and decompress because I threw a lot at you this episode. So thanks for hanging in there with me, and we'll see you back here next time.